Welcome to our program Psychological Studies. Today, the 11th module, Jesus and the Gospel under the light of the profound psychology. Our reflections, as always, are based on a theory of reincarnation, considering that we are all immortal beings. Jesus is the most notable being in humanity's history. In any considered aspect, his testament, the Gospel, is the most beautiful poem of hope and consolations, as teaches the spiritual benefactor Joanna de Ângelis. At the same time, it is a precious contemporary psychotherapy approach for the many disturbances afflicting the individual and humanity. The natural law which exists in the whole universe is love. Do we know that love is the greatest power in the universe and we carry it within us? The cosmos harmony does not change because it proceeds from intelligent causality. This spontaneous order is always the same everywhere in the universe. Jesus' teachings are based in the evolution of the self, enlightening the shadows, in overcoming them. Jesus came to teach us the ethical and spiritual values, the eternal values, as immortal beings as we all are, learning in the universe. All the objectives of his good news that he brought to earth focus on the future of the spirit, in its emancipation, in its constant search for God. Our evolution pathway is a constant search for God. With his laws we bring within us, and we are unfolding them through our progress. In the perspective of the profound psychology, the law of love is innate in every one of us, favoring the development of lucidity of the soul, which starts to develop the inner freedom. Therefore, overcoming any negative obstacles as the internal, healthy choices strengthen the real, constructive values, sustained by the Spirit through its own free will. Free will we are all developing as we progress, as we grow spiritually, or as we progress, as we evolve psychologically and emotionally. Jesus is the example of the integral being, completely free from the disturbed unconscious. The physical existence should be lived with joy for all of us, through the richness which the experiences offer, helping the spirit to free from the inferior passions. Good and bad, the duality, light and shadow, in which each human being struggles, represents the future and the past of every human being in evolution. In the process of ethical growth through reincarnation, everyone improves the innate values, giving rid of the elements of inferiority acquired throughout the evolution path, freeing from old habits, impulses, in order to achieve reason and discernment. Surely, there are many reborns in the same existence. Each moment, the psychological being renews itself in exercising the moral ethical values, constituting this effort a new existence of achievements and transformations, which it submits itself to consciously. Vital to understand that many psychotic and neurotic disturbances are based on the vibratory structures from the previous existences, previous experiences of crime and tragedy, which were printed in the deep unconscious. The perispirit, or the spiritual body, is staying asleep, awaiting the time for the process of moral therapy to take place. Reincarnation, in this way, is also a divine loving psychotherapy process, a process of justice which allows all of us to evolve through personal efforts, dignifying each being with their own achievements, which are personal. Love, which means superior emotional achievement, breaks the density of ignorance, while prayer dilutes the thick, dark waves that surround discernment. Through love, we discover the existential meaning, acquiring sentiments of humanity, with release of the high burden of the instinctive energies, understanding the need to share with our brothers and sisters in humanity what we have, but also sharing what enriches, what enlightens us. The spirit is immortal, and the temporal relativity is always succeeded by its perenniality. Jesus, the great psychotherapist, always invited everyone to take responsibility for their own duties, becoming the real educator in teaching us responsibility means autonomy, in choosing not to transfer to others what only each individual can do for itself, but every one of us can do for us. In that way, Jesus' approach motivates the individual to stimulate the internal potentials through exercising free will wisely and dedication, efforts towards self-transformation. Patience could also be considered the signs of peace. Therefore, all those who work with confidence in favor of the renewal of the world and the creatures are blessed. Are we already awake and engaged in cooperating with the renewal of the world, of ourselves and everybody else? Peace should be the goal for every individual who struggles in continuous attempts to acquire fullness. Patience, which is an individual achievement through the self-illumination, self-knowledge, and discovery of the objectives of the existence, transforms itself in essential charity, meaningful when directed towards those who suffer, helping them with kindness, working the resignation that also derives from it. Patience encourages us because it helps to cope with any situation. We may ask ourselves, which is the level of patience which we developed so far? It is always possible to train, to exercise it in our daily experiences. The law of love originates in God, is natural, is everywhere, as an expression of order and value, never leaning in favor of a particular person or a specific social group. Under the light of profound psychology, forgiveness is overcoming the disturbing feelings of retaliation, revenge, and the hateful images through the perfect integration of the being in itself, without being hurt by the distressing occurrences of interpersonal relationships, which are so common in our state of evolution. When one stops in the sadness or in the complaints, resenting bitterness or moral discomfort by unpleasant occurrences, which relate to their way of behaving spiritually, infidelity to the principles embraced is distant from the message that should impregnate it in such a way that there would be no room for the installation of these morbid conflicts. Self-consciousness identifies all those occurrences and surpasses them, for they signify reactions of persons and groups psychologically in the infancy of their interests, is still linked to the games of illusion, disputing preferences and projections without any profound meaning. In the perspective of profound psychology, the one who remains in a state of despair is bound up with the links of inferior rebirth, unable to free himself from going and coming, for not shining inwardly the love that is the only resource favoring happiness and well-being. God always allows everyone to use the free will to address mistakes, offering vigorous resources that are at the same time therapeutic for the rebellious spirits. In the perspective of profound psychology, the being lives in order to love and to be loved, to illuminate the shadows and to make the self prevail. Efficient therapy for overcoming the shadow, love is the fortifier medicine for the sick ego. Efficient stimulus for the self that blossoms when irrigated by the flow of that higher feeling of life. The absence of love in the human being and consequently in the world demonstrates the still predominant stage of primarism, which hinders the process of evolution, generating conflicts that are perfectly dispensable. To love is to open our heart unreservedly, to be disarmed with feelings of opposition, always favorable to good and progress, even when we disagree with the statements that are presented. It is also a mechanism of compassion and mercy for ourselves and especially for others, helping in the development of trust. Love does not lie, because it is the structure of authenticity, always open and clear, possessing almost infinite capacity for patience and understanding. Only love allows people to see themselves as they are. Without it, one perceives the reflexes of the personality that wants to impress and conquer place and affection, without the essential quality that is the deep feeling of giving and receiving. The absence of shadow always favors the presence of knowledge and discernment, of action opposed to selfishness, producing internal harmony and not ambition, not vulgar and destructive competitiveness. Authentic in itself reflects the higher psychism of life. As we continue our reflections from a transpersonal perspective, we understand that we all are mediums. Because we all have resources that provide the perceiving of the psyche of those with whom we live in the body or without it. Mediumship is a human natural faculty that enables the individual to exchange with the spiritual world communication between the two dimensions of life as a natural process. Mediumship is of a spiritual essence, externalizing itself under the interference and direction of the spirits, who according to their individuality sow shadows or knowledge and love, depending on their level of evolution. It is the faculty of mediums being extremely beautiful and enriching when exercised for noble and elevated purposes. It is the faculty of mediums being extremely beautiful and enriched when we all exercise the noble values in our hearts, in our minds, and become mediums of beauty, of peace, of harmony, of light, of goodness. The authentic donation signed in the personal disinterest constituted to them the sign of union with God, the demonstration that they worked for the success of the good in the world. The real being, in the light of the psychology of the spirit, is eternal, experiencing innumerable physical rebirths and evolving in the direction of the great light, which will impregnate it with the clarity of peace. As the individual becomes aware of the reality of the profound self, the individual, all of us, the search for higher levels becomes inevitable. Conquered one level, another appears challenging, enriched with possibilities previously not known. The individual ascends step by step in an incessant development of values that become urgent to conquer, obtaining greater understanding of the objectives of life. Progress is the result of continuous attempts at realizations, in growing under the inspiration of culture and knowledge and love. The search, in the sense of profound psychology, is the intense work of self-development, of self-illumination, overcoming every stubborn shadow of ignorance and suffering. When one pursues sincerely, the obstacles are decisively overcome, opening up very comforting perspectives that bring about the full realization of the profound self. Jesus confirmed it with wisdom, saying, "Ask, seek, knock," dignifying the human being who should never stop in what they already achieved, because the phase of the reason in which it delays, giving it individual consciousness, will expand to more meaningful experiences, which is that of the intuition. The awareness of immortality is of relevant importance for the self-discovery and continuous evolution of the immortal being. We are all immortal beings in evolution, evolving, progressing, learning, studying in the school Earth, as brothers and sisters in humanity. This possibility has been granted to us by God, who is love and merciful, who created us with love in order for us to learn to love. Let us all reflect, think, and sincerely engage with our own evolution process. Be willing to improve ourselves. Be willing to develop the real values that bring happiness and also integral health to all of us, today and always. Much peace to all.